In today's video of my series, Art of DMing, we're going to be talking about setting. Hey folks, welcome back to video number 3 of my series of the Art of DMing. Today we're going to talk about setting. I think setting is one of my favorite things to consider when I'm beginning a campaign or bring my characters or my players into a new area. And there's some things that I wanted to share with you that might be tips or help for you to think about when you're coming up with your own setting. My first tip or piece of advice is to think about what inspires you. What settings inspire you and in what mediums? These things are going to influence how you yourself approach settings. So for example, for me, I really love movies. Movies are a very big part of my life. Let me know in the comments below what movies you love. I'd love to chat with you about that. But there's certain movies that have certain settings that are really inspirational to me. For example, I really like the setting in The Last Samurai, which is a really interesting movie that takes place in Japan. I also really love the setting in Lord of the Rings, of course, a classic movie with large sprawling mountains and landscapes and things like that. I also love the setting in the Harry Potter movies when Harry and his friends are going to Hogwarts for the first time and encountering all sorts of different magic and trinkets and things like that, particularly in this place called Diagon Alley when the stone brick wall just kind of unfolds and they step into this wizarding world, this sort of shopping district. I love settings in TV shows. Most recently, I was watching The Queen's Gambit with my wife, and the setting of the time period was very fascinating and interesting to me. I also love the setting in video games. I recently made a video about Cyberpunk 2077 that had a very inspiring setting regarding the cyberpunk dark future world, the neon lights, the bright signs, the big advertisements, the fancy cars in the evening. There's all different kinds of things that can inspire you when it comes to thinking about your own setting. And it's good to lean in as you think of creating your own. My next tip is what feel do you want to go for? Now you've been inspired by all different kinds of settings. The question then is, what is the feel that you are going for? What do you want your players to experience when they walk into the setting, right? Don't forget, they're kind of coming into this world of imagination that you're building so that you can facilitate for them. What is the feeling that you want them to get? There's this town that I built for a group I started running recently where I wanted them to feel sort of the poverty of the place, right? There was a lot of people who were beggars and things like that. Houses were run down and desolate and needed repair. Even the guards had ill-fitting equipment because the kingdom was impoverished. They didn't have the money to afford finely sort of crafted or well-fitting equipment for their soldiers, right? The food was sort of not very vibrant. It was kind of dull and small. I described even the potatoes being extra small. The farmland was not good. This place sort of was poor and had no great economy. You know, there wasn't really great things to trade. It wasn't a bustling sort of vibrant place, right? That's kind of what I really wanted to communicate to my players. In contrast, in another campaign that I did before, where there was this city that I had built called the City of Love. They jokingly call the City of Love. It was the capital city, right, of this vast empire. There was prosperity everywhere. It was tiered. People dressed in fine clothing throughout the city. There was prosperity everywhere. People were dining at nice restaurants. There was multiple different places where they could buy very fancy clothing if they wanted. There was very fancy wine of exquisite taste. People were eating charcuterie, things like that. It was a very medieval type of town with very sort of loyal and regal. That was kind of what I was trying to give off to my players. What is the setting that you were trying to build? What do you want your players to feel? What do you want? What do you want them to know? What are you trying to say? What are you communicating? Your setting can actually communicate a lot about your story and about the plot even before your players even get there. Even you can actually hint at it with your setting, right? If everyone that they encounter is beaten and downtrodden by the troops or by the tyrant of the area, maybe that says something about what's going on in the area. If people won't go out at night because they fear for their lives, what does that say? If people are afraid of the forest or have heard things about the forest or from the forest, what does that say about your plot? There's all sorts of little hints you can give within your setting. You can do it with weather too, right? Thick fogs are great. Loud storms, things like that. Barren wastelands can communicate lots of things. The dusty, cracked ground can maybe communicate that there is a drought going on in the area. What are you trying to communicate with your setting? The third thing is this: what are some overall themes as well that are woven throughout your setting? What are some reoccurring things, whether it be through the people or the land or the things that you experience? I think that one game that comes to mind that does this really well is a game called Horizon Zero Dawn, where they have themes of nomadic people, right? All the tribes are sort of, well, they're not all nomadic, but they're sort of these tribal people who are going around and they're trying to figure out their world, because there's these machines that roam, but they're sort of very primitive people, right? And this is a theme throughout the entire game, from how they worship what they view as gods or their religion, to how they view even the light that comes from the machines, the blue light. They have an explanation for this, right? It's a sense of wonder and discovery that they set up in this game that has a little bit to do with the plot for sure, but kind of is part of this setting, is throughout this theme. Don't forget that setting is not just what the description of a place is, right? It can be, the people can be included in that. Like I mentioned, these themes, these sort of little nudges of what is actually going on can all be included in your setting. Tip number 4, my biggest tip actually is this: when it comes to the setting, this is a very practical tip, so I hope it helps you. But the biggest way to describe setting and to engage people in a suspension of their disbelief, and what I mean by that is when people are kind of imagining the game, they're imagining the setting, this helps them suspend that they're actually where they are, and it helps them enter sort of the game, right? The space. Is the big tip is by engaging their senses, by engaging their 5 senses of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. If you can incorporate these 5 things, if you can engage all 5 of these senses in every single place that your players are going to go into, you're going to win. You're already winning. You're already engaging them at such a deeper level. One of the places that I find the easiest to do this, right, is at new taverns. Taverns have all sorts of different things, right? When the players walk in, what do they see? What do they see in the tavern? Is there a large hearth in the back that is roaring? Is there lots of people around? Are the bar maidens sort of very busy, or is it quite sparse? You know, what does the barkeep look like around behind the bar? Is he a big troll? Is he a small gnome? What do they see? What are the people wearing? Are they wearing trinkets of value? Are they wearing very plain clothes? Are the tables rugged and well used, or are they brand new? What do they see? What do they hear? Do they hear the roaring of the flame, the crackling of the fire? Do they hear the sound of excited conversation? Do they hear the bard playing a really nice tune? Do they hear arguing in the back of 2 men about to go at it? Do they hear the rain from outside pelting on the roof of the tavern? What do they hear? What do they smell? Do they smell alcohol? Do they smell the smell of cooked meat? Do they smell fresh bread being sort of baked around back? Do they smell sort of gunk and mud? Do they smell unhygienic peasants who are having their dinner at the local tavern? What do they smell? What do they taste, right? A tavern is an easy place because there's always food, right? What does the wine taste like? What does the meat taste like? What does the air taste like? Is it salty air because they're by an ocean? Can they taste sort of the smoke even from the flames of the hearth? And of course, our last is touch. What do they feel when they touch? Do they feel sort of the worn wood? Maybe the chairs are finely crafted, or do they get a splinter because it's so worn down or cheap and mismatched chairs? Do they feel sort of the rough skin of the bartender as they shake their hand? Do they feel the wet clothes of sailors as they brush by them? What do they feel? If you can engage these 5 senses, you're already winning when it comes to describing a setting and a place. And your players are going to love it. If you go that extra mile, I promise you it is worth it. My final tip for setting is this, is to think about what the main places your characters are going to travel, or the main people that they're going to interact with. And by this, I mean it's good to prepare in advance certain places that your characters or your players are going to go, and that way you have to do less legwork in advance. I found it extremely rewarding when I do prepare at least a little bit in advance the description of a place, sort of some of these senses to maybe think about when you're preparing a description of a place. Of course, your players are always going to go places you do not expect, and therefore you're going to have to scramble a little bit and do some improv and come up with unique places. But if you can prepare some settings in advance, or some scenes almost in advance, I like to think of them as scenes. This one time my players were sort of dungeon diving in these old ancient underwater ruins, and they came upon this mural. I sort of prepared this scene for when they walked into the room right ahead of time. I described sort of the mural and what was there. I had already written it down. I knew exactly how it was going to unfold, kind of like a movie, like I mentioned. And preparing these scenes can be really meaningful moments of communicating various different facts or things like that. Folks, I hope this video was helpful to you, talking a little bit about setting. Let me know if you want to hear more about any tips about setting. I hope this helped you. Feel free to share this video if you really liked it. Feel free to like and comment and subscribe if you really liked it. And I'm hoping to release more videos of my Art of DMing series, so stay tuned for that. And until next time, keep rolling. See ya.